America's first competition talk show. You're in the hub.
This is the kind of topic, by the way, that you may never see on YouTube. It may be flagged before you ever get to it. So if you are actually watching this video, I want to talk a little bit about a concern that is a perennial concern for the Parents Television Council, and it's a concern all over again, that primetime television is over-sexualizing underage teenage girls. More and more. Specifically, this is happening between the 7 to 10 o'clock spot during primetime with shows like Glee, shows like Gossip Girl, which I've seen about 20 minutes of Glee. I thought, they got a point. This is also that topic where you immediately admit that you're talking about it in serious terms, so you're a prude. And when you were 15 years old, you were like, you know what? My parents are so stupid for being this way. I would never be this concerned about this. But that brings up a good point. Is a lot of the reason why parents don't engage in these kind of issues and advocate against what the media is doing, because they think back to the 60s and Woodstock and they go, I can't really do that because it'd be kind of hypocritical. I mean, when I was wallowing around nude, drunk off my ass, how can I possibly comment on my child's sexuality? Do you think there's some guilt complex going on? Is the reason parents just don't jump in, Whitney?
Well, I think that the reason that parents don't just jump in is that the parents who are offended by these shows aren't watching them, and neither are their children. So the people who don't have any problem with it are the ones who are watching it, except for the Parents Television Council, who's reviewing everything.
Yeah. So basically you're saying that the kids really should, the parents that really could care less about it should just leave it alone for the parents who really want their kids to be sexed up, and this is giving them that opportunity.
No, that is not at all what I am saying.
Not what you were saying. Okay, well, good try. Leek, what do you think?
I agree with Whitney. It's the parents who are concerned are actually doing, society a benefit, because this is not good. This leads to, quite frankly, crimes against persons involving teenage girls, and it causes a societal shift where people go from thinking of something as inappropriate to thinking of it as a marginal or boundary activity, and then the next migration is to where, oh, it's okay. I mean, it's like other stories we've done. Back in the 50s, lying was bad. You just never lied. You didn't lie about things. Now we have movies and television and all forms of literature where, well, if you really toe the line, then you're some sort of prudish, uptight Elliot Ness style, or Dan Aykroyd's character in Dragnet, or your Joe Friday. There's a reason that Dragnet was popular in its day, because people identify with Joe Friday towing the line. Now we don't toe the line, and if you toe the line, you're seen as being too uptight, and that stuff does not happen in one discrete movement. It happens on a
gradually
over time.
Yeah.
And this article points directly to
and some of the statistics are astounding in this survey. I mean, the fact that they did a look to see, statistically speaking, how many adults are pictured in sexual situations in primetime television as opposed to underage teenage girls in most of these cases. 47% to 29% students portrayed in this way as opposed to adults. So it's completely flipped on its head. Another statistic that they threw out was that 98% of the sexual incidents involving underage female characters occurred outside of any committed relationship. 73% of underage sexualized incidents were presented in a humorous manner. So not only is it happening without any commitment level involved, but it's also happening in a kind of a tongue-in-cheek sort of, just kind of throw caution to the wind sort of way, just a really flippant sort of way, Monica. I mean, how do you, how do you address this? And honestly, I think help teenage girls see that this is more of an issue and they need to be aware of it. This is not normal behavior.
I mean, I think really, in my opinion, the core root isn't so much the fact that sexuality is on TV. It's just not a healthy form of sexuality. Like, we are sexual beings. Like, that needs to be addressed. And people need to talk about it. Like, you can't just be like in the 50s and just like shut things out because people did things in the 50s and they just didn't talk about it. But that didn't mean it didn't exist. So that's more the question for me. I I don't really know what they mean by humorous situations. So I'd like to have more clarity about that.
I mean, God, I lost all respect for June Cleaver there. United Kingdom's addressing this right now. They actually, the government in the UK, wonder of all wonders, is thinking about outlawing pornography on the internet through the filters that they have there. They said you can actually cut it. We know technologically speaking, you can cut it off at the source. So the parents would have to, if they want to view it, have an opt-in feature. So, we're living in the twilight zone when the UK is more conservative than the US. But is that really the issue?
Well, I wonder, when you ask, is this normal behavior, is it, which came first? Are these TV people just making these shows as a reflection of what is already happening in society and not necessarily driving the behavior of teenage girls, but maybe this is what teenage behavior is like right now. And so all they're doing is trying to make it as close to reality as possible. And that might not be desirable. We might not want society to go that way, but maybe all these shows are doing is reflecting on what society is already doing.
So does art reflect society, or does society reflect art? That classic question, which comes first, like you're saying. I mean, ultimately, you look at this kind of stuff and you think, in some ways, is this the broadcast industry? Is this a conspiracy to cause a rift between kids and their parents? They know that this is going to siphon them off, and we all know that kids are more materialistic and have more discretionary income because they've got dad's Visa card. Dad's at work; he can't be using it then, and so we know that the film industry, for one, especially during the summer, the kids are off; they're looking for something to do. They are tailoring media to teenagers because teenagers are one of the they have the most and use the most discretionary income. So is this a way to siphon the kids off from the parental influence and say, if you can have the kids at home literally standing up for themselves against their parents on behalf of their own, the way they perceive themselves they should be, is that a win-win for media? And is it a pipe dream to assume we could ever change it? Because after all, sex sells, and if I'm in media, I'm about advertising. I'm about sales. So, I mean, how do you get your head around some of these things? Monica?
I absolutely think it is a conspiracy.
You think it's a conspiracy?
Oh, totally. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, seriously. All right. And the alien landed in your backyard and crop circles and all that?
Right.
Cool. Just want to get that out there.
This is going to sound cheesy, but I think it's an issue of the heart and, what are people's motivations? I mean, that's really my humble opinion.
It's a soul issue.
It is a soul issue.
Oh
Sexuality is touched. They connect, whether you like it or not. You can't detach them, and if you are, then you're lying against yourself. And that kind of goes back to some of our earlier episodes. But,
do you think that's it? Do you think it has an impact? Do you think it sets these and disregard even what you were talking about earlier, Leek, with that this sets them up for violent behavior, violence against women later in life, or even before they get out of high school? Does it set a teenage girl up for an identity crisis that they never completely pull out of?
I think that's probably valid because you've got, again, it goes back. First of all, I think it's more fundamental. I think it's just ratings driven. You make the important connection between disposable income and these shows. So these shows say, okay, we've got this market out there that has disposable income. They spend more of their income than their parents, and a higher proportion, plus they're siphoning money off from their parents to spend. And so the way to get them motivated to watch the shows and drive the advertising dollars is to make sure that people like them are portrayed in the sexual situation. So sex sells, but if you've got this group with this disposable income, they don't even want to see, kids in the mid-20s having sex. The sex that sells to them is sex amongst, people their own age. But then it goes, it does go back to, I don't think it does go back to a crisis of identity where, the reason we're responding to this right now is that currently in our society, this is a taboo. Now, taboo usually implies something that's not, it may be happening, but it's not prevalent.
Go to Italy, France, you'll get over it real quick. That could be the problem solver right there.
It's not prevalent, so it doesn't necessarily pertain to the underlying society. It's there, but it's not prevalent. And so the reason it's not prevalent is that girls this age, are supposed to be doing, the things we've always associated with adolescence.
Well, let me
any more than we're shocked when Fox News or the news reported that 14-year-old assassin. Why is that a story? Because we don't think of 14-year-old girls having sex, and we don't think of 14-year-old boys as getting out there and carrying out hits. And that does create an identity crisis. I mean, when I was 14 years old, the most I aspired to was high school football, and not doing the male equivalent of this kind of thing.
But put it there, Freud. I mean, it was high school football to get the sex, right? I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
of course. There you go. Everything.
But I was on. But that was
It's
at
like
least
a funnel.
But that was
Everything goes the
But that was
same
at
direction.
least a 2 or 3 year plan. I mean, I had to get bigger. I had to be a starter. Now, seriously,
Cool. Okay. Well,
there is an identity crisis.
let me.
The girls they're talking to here are supposed to be doing, teenage things, not sex.
Yeah. Let me step in it. On this one, because I want to tease this out. That what is the impact on women as they grow older when they're exposed to this kind of behavior at this young an age, and it's so readily accepted. I want to get in. We've been reading. The feminine mystique has been going on for what, like 35, 40 years now, and we've all been told that the sexual revolution was empowering to women, and that women were empowered by all this, and you use your sex to get what you want. But is it really empowering to women, or is it a sellout? I mean, I'm talking back some stuff that G.K. Chesterton wrote back in the early part of the 20th century when we were talking about suffrage, where he said that, to paraphrase, this is a sellout. I mean, is it really empowering to women when ultimately they have capitulated? Ultimately, they've said, all right, we believe that what it means to be a woman is the same thing that guys have wanted all along, which was more sex. So, the woman may say, okay, I'm doing this because it's sexually empowering. But in reality, the guy's saying, hey, do it all you want, baby, because I'm getting what I want, actually empowers me.
Well, you're also acting as if women don't want to have sex. Like you're acting like, oh, they just do it to get what they want. Well, maybe they do it because they like to have sex.
Because they like to have sex. That's a good.
The whole sexual empowerment thing doesn't necessarily mean that women were going out and using sex to get what they wanted from men.
To get the next
they might have
job
been
up the
using
ladder.
sex to just get what they wanted for themselves.
They wanted sex. Now, and that's another whole question. Was the 20th century woman as consumed with wanting it as they are today? Is it a sex-saturated society, or was it more exposure that made women want it more?
That was really deep.
Okay.
Followed by the dead air.
On that note, let me breathe. But, I mean, we got time. All right, good. Basically, the question I have, after reading the passage, I'll just whip this out real quick. G.K. Chesterton, The Problem with the World. This was in 1915. He wrote this. Says, it is equally obvious that these two necessary sanctities of thrift and dignity, which are, he's saying, are part of the feminine dimension, are bound to come into collision with the wordiness, the wastefulness, and the perpetual pleasure-seeking of masculine companionship. And it's an ancestral conflict that's basically ended, he said, in the early part of the 20th century, the debate over suffrage, where one of the two sexes, the women, have surrendered to the other now, have basically owned that the man was right all along, that really the power is held not in the dignity, but in being wasteful with the words and wasteful in, just being showy in public. And that was really what it was really all about. To go deep and take deeper.
Honestly, what I keep on thinking is right before that, you had like the Victorian era where sex was obsolete. So in that case, I could see that, do it for England, like that was empowering for women. Women had power over men. You know what I mean? Like,
sex is patriotic. Do it for your country. Do it for Uncle Sid.
I agree with that. Sex is patriotic.
Do one for the Gipper. Or maybe not.
We're a nation at war. Get to it.
Get to it now. You were saying.
So in that case, in that context, that was in the 1920s, that would make sense. Now, as we get later, women try to almost lose their sexuality in the 70s by becoming men, in the workforce. And now it's I don't know, we just keep on going back and forth between, embracing our feminine selves versus not embracing our feminine selves. And, we're just having an identity crisis, I think, bottom line.
Yeah,
it does affect you, and it definitely, as a teenager, it is extremely confusing.
And I think it affects men, too, on how they view manhood in relation to womanhood. Whitney, final word. What do you think? Was radical feminism, did it elevate womanhood, or did it bastardize by making it more manly?
I think it elevated womanhood.
Okay, there we go. The final straw. We'll see you after the holidays. Merry Christmas on the Hub.